So, I want to have a really interesting conversation in this video. And I want to talk to you a little bit about being the other woman or the other man, the person sort of on this side in a relationship, and why people fall into this trap in the first place and what it really represents. Now, if you are listening to this because this is you or you've had an experience with this, I really want to urge you to approach listening to this from a place of curiosity and really leaving the self judgment and self shame at the door because there's actually really unique things happening at a subconscious level of mind that are often causing these types of dynamics to feel attractive or to occur. So we're going to dive into studying those very specific things. First and foremost, like of course, I don't think it's a great experience or situation to be in. I think that it's obviously not great for the person who's in the relationship where there is another person on the side, and it's also really painful for the person who's on the side to be involved or invested in that kind of dynamic. But we don't heal or break away from these things. We don't solve for them by criticizing, by shaming. We solve for them by understanding and then taking the necessary steps that involve the subconscious mind, because these things are not happening from conscious choice. These things are happening from subconscious mind. And when you understand them and can invest in that deeper understanding and then taking the steps to really recondition the subconscious and what's going on that's leading to these types of scenarios, this is how we heal these things. This is how we facilitate change. And this is how we don't end up back in those situations in the future. So I just want to start by saying, I've definitely had a lot of clients over the years who've been in this kind of dynamic. And I want to start by validating that it also sucks for that person. Of course, it's not good. Of course, I can't sit here and say, that's great, keep doing it. You want to get out of that situation as quickly as possible because it's a challenging situation to be in. And of course, it's harming somebody else's relationship or life. But there's a lot deeper stuff going on beneath the surface here that's really powerful to deeply understand. So, first and foremost, the big thing that you want to understand is if you are the person who ends up in relationships where you're on the side, you're the other woman, you're the other man, this is because you have a subconscious comfort zone that comes from childhood where usually there was neglect or extreme inconsistency of highs and lows, which made your subconscious mind a match to this experience. There are a few core things that drive attraction, and some of them can drive limerence-based attraction, like traits, people expressing our repressed traits, or people meeting our unmet needs. But the type of attraction that's driven by what we actually will invest in over the long haul has so much to do with our subconscious comfort zone, meaning we tend to acquire wounds in childhood. Let's say in this case that we have, we'll call this fictitious person Sally. Let's say we have Sally, and let's say Sally grew up in a home where there was a lot of neglect the vast majority of the time. And let's say that was from her primary caregiver, perhaps her mother. And then let's say, her parents were divorced, she had her father around, but didn't really see her father that often. And when she did, her father could be really unpredictable, maybe have these big highs or big lows. So, what ends up happening for every person is that we tend to internalize the patterns and treat ourselves in a very similar way to which we were treated. You can even see, like in your internal dialogue, I always say your internal dialogue is often your internalized dialogue, right? If you get a lot of criticism, you're probably going to be very self critical. If you get a lot of shaming for your emotions, you probably shame your own emotions. So you'll see a lot of how we get treated as children actually determines how we treat the relationship to ourselves. If you don't get a lot of good self-care practices demonstrated to you in your upbringing, you probably don't take great care of yourself, right? You probably neglect having healthy habits and getting to sleep on time and cooking for yourself if those weren't demonstrated to you. So what you'll see is, let's say we take this person, Sally, will say, and she has this experience, right? She gets neglected the vast majority of the time, then has these peak moments followed by these strong lows. So that subconscious comfort zone of familiarity, one of the big things that she'll be driven to be attracted to are people who treat her in a similar way. What's a really similar context for that? It's being the other woman in a relationship. It's having neglect the vast majority of the time because that person's with somebody else, followed by peak moments of getting to spend time with that person, followed by really low lows of feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm longing for that person. I miss that person. I don't know when I'm going to see them next. And so it doesn't mean that every person who goes through a childhood similar to that will end up in this dynamic, but it's one of many dynamics that's quite possible because it mirrors back to you, not just your childhood and those dynamics in terms of how they made you feel, but how you took on your childhood. And then you probably treat yourself that way. So let's take a deeper look at that for a second. You may find that you neglect your own emotions, you neglect your own needs, your own boundaries because you were neglected in childhood, which means you will not have the warning bells or the red flags go off in the same way if you're in a dynamic as the other woman. Because what's happening, right, if we really take an honest look, is that you are so busy neglecting your needs, it's kind of okay for your needs to be neglected. It feels comfortable, it feels familiar, it feels like this is safe, it's what I know. And so when somebody else does that because they're busy with somebody else's needs rather than yours, it feels familiar. Your conscious mind may know better that it's not healthy. Your subconscious mind will likely keep investing in it. And what you have to recognize is that your subconscious mind runs the show. It's responsible for 95 to 97% of your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your decisions on a daily basis. And this is why we have so many different habit issues, right? You can say, I'm going to quit eating chocolate. And 3 days later, you're eating chocolate. Or you say, I'm going to go to the gym every day. And then, you fall off a few days later, or people struggle with their New Year's resolutions. This is all representing the relationship between the conscious and subconscious mind. So when you're in a position where you are, saying, I know better, I need to get out of this relationship, and yet you stay, it's often because the person that you're in a relationship to mirrors back to you your subconscious comfort zone in terms of the relationship to yourself. And we keep investing in things that feel familiar. So what do you do? One of the first things is you have to make a list of all the different unmet needs that came from your childhood. Maybe you didn't feel seen, heard, prioritized, validated, encouraged, protected. Maybe you didn't feel understood, supported, accepted. Make a list, okay? The second thing you want to do is learn to meet these needs in the relationship to yourself. You can't go outside it when it comes to needs. You have to go inside out. The reason this is so important is because if we don't learn to meet the needs in the relationship to ourselves first, then when somebody else meets them externally, we sabotage them. Watch this. Let's say you beat yourself up all day. You're like, in your words, okay? You're really critical to yourself. You are really mean to yourself when you make a mistake. And let's say that's because you had really critical parents growing up. And so that's your subconscious comfort zone. So then what happens is when somebody compliments you, you probably either deflect it, you either feel really great about it for 15 minutes, and then you go back to going, they didn't meet that. They don't really know me. I'm not really worthy of that compliment. You sabotage in some way. And this is the really hard part and kind of the tragic part about when we don't clean up our subconscious mind first, is that if we don't have a subconscious comfort zone around the things that we're yearning for, we can only ever accept them for very short periods of time. It's like we'll get a little bit of it, we get a taste, it feels so good, and then we sabotage. We won't let it fully in, or we won't ask for more. We won't allow ourselves to take up space around that need that might be so valuable to you that you're pining after. And so it's really important that we learn to meet our needs in the relationship to ourselves first. This is like how you get what you actually want. And we have to program it. We have to condition it in until it becomes a comfort zone, which means at least 21 days of really meeting your needs. Now, if you're like, how do I do that? What does that mean? That's a topic for another time. But if you want to do a deep dive into a course, it's an hour and a half long. It will give you all of the tools you need to discover your needs, really fulfill them, meet them in the relationship to yourself, and then even learn how to communicate them in healthy ways to others so you can actually receive them as well, and to remove any receiving blocks, so that you don't sabotage when you start meeting them. It really has those core major steps in there. And I'll put the link to that course down below. It's for free for 7 days. It will definitely be more than enough time to get through the course because it's like 2 hours long, probably. So when you dive into that, you want to understand, I have to learn to meet these deeply unmet needs. Not only is that a huge part of becoming securely attached, but it's a huge part of not ending up in these situations and actually receiving and feeling like you are worthy and deserving of people who do want to invest in you. So that's huge. Second part, you have to heal the subconscious mind of the old core wounds. So these things that you're doing that hurt, maybe it's wounds coming from neglect, right? Maybe you feel like you're a burden, or maybe you feel like there's something wrong with you and you're not worthy or deserving of asking for more or having more from somebody in your life. Maybe you feel like if you ask for more, you'll be abandoned. Maybe you feel like if you ask for more, the person will pull away anyways and you'll be alone forever. Maybe you don't feel worthy of being seen or heard or understood. Maybe you feel like I am not important, right? These are all different core wounds at the subconscious level that we have to heal, because here's the part that's so tricky about core wounds. They can hurt us so much. We can strongly dislike them, and yet they're familiar. So, as much as we'll try to pull away from them in many ways, usually we're just on a path to recreating. Just look at this really obvious example. Let's say you feel not good enough. Let's say it's a big core wound. Okay. Let's say it's because you had really critical parents growing up. Let's say you go into a job interview. What happens? Well, your subconscious mind starts saying, you're not good enough. You're not prepared enough. You're not smart enough. You're not qualified enough. You start having these autopilot thoughts. Those autopilot thoughts are not helping you ace the job interview. They're not helping you get ahead. So, as much as you want to do things to become good enough, usually that subconscious comfort zone keeps, it's like you get dragged back into it again, or then you try to push ahead. Your conscious mind is trying to get you to feel good enough by taking this new job, by pursuing your goals. But your subconscious mind is saying, no, 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 you belong right here in this orbit of what's familiar. And so it will keep sabotaging you until you actually recondition the core wound itself. It'll keep coming back in all these different forms through the trickery of the core wounds and the subconscious trying to maintain its comfort zone. So if you feel like I'm not important, you'll invest in people who make you feel not important. If you feel not good enough, same thing. If you feel unworthy, you'll keep investing in people who make you feel unworthy. You'll keep telling yourself you're not worthy of and deserving of your real needs or of having more. And so again, we invest in people who mirror to us exactly how we treat ourselves at the subconscious level of mind. You can't grow beyond that until you heal those core wounds the vast majority of the time. So it's really important to do that reprogramming. I have a whole course about this too. Emotional mastery and belief reprogramming. It goes all into a major tool called auto suggestion, and it will teach you how to recondition these big core wounds you might have been carrying for years in simply 21 days. The free pass below will also give you access to that course. So you want to really take a look at this. You want to understand what's going on here that's led you to this place to begin with. You want to realize it's not your fault that you got all these wounds and needs that often put you in these different dynamics or situations, but it is your responsibility. Only you can fix it by showing up for yourself. And, it's really powerful to be able to do this work because it stops you from putting up with things that are less than you deserve. Now, if you need an emergency third piece here, that's important to pay attention to, it's also that your subconscious mind sees more benefits than costs to staying in this relationship. So it's often that your subconscious mind says, okay, well, I'm not going to find somebody better than this, or I won't find somebody that wants to give me time like this, or that I like this much. So your subconscious mind will tend to keep you stuck, because if you feel unworthy of more, right, then you'll see that this person has more benefits to be with than drawbacks, even if they're with somebody else. And this is where we have to do a regrouping of our cost benefit analysis. And we have to look at, what are all the downsides of being with this person? What are all the costs and what are all the upsides of doing this inner work, healing, and feeling confident enough to break free? And when you write out all the benefits, they elicit an emotional association. They elicit emotions. Think of it that way. And when you write lots of benefits and then lots of costs, you elicit a lot of negative emotions towards the person and positive emotions towards healing and taking your freedom and your power back as a person. And it's a repetition and emotion that reprograms. So the more you list out on each side, the more you're leveraging the chances of driving your own behavior in the direction that you want it to go. You're using your conscious mind to drive your subconscious mind in a different direction. It's kind of like one of many ways to hack the system. So anyways, 3 powerful things to keep in mind, really important topic. Please be gentle to yourself and compassionate to yourself if you're going through this, but please also know this is not a good situation to be in long-term for anybody. So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope it shed some light on some things you might have been wondering or curious about. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I put videos out every single day. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. You'll get all kinds of videos about the subconscious mind, the new attachment theory, which is integrated attachment theory, and so many ways of healing and really breaking through. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in future videos.